So, America's been fun recently, right? How's the orange been for you guys over there? Has he still been causing you trouble a la a more sociopathic Lex Luthor? To get serious here, viewers of the channel might know that I am a huge fan of America. I talk about it constantly, and I only have good things to say about it. I know all of the 40-something states, I know the theme song, I know the prayer of alliance you have to say in class, and of course, I love freedom. Unlike most non Americans out there. We all know that the only thing us evil Australians care about is permanent jail time and imprisonment. Despite my insurmountable love for the land of the free, however, I am yet to learn anything about its culture, tradition, and history, and that's why I've decided to look into the PragerU Kids channel. I think it will help this channel and its viewers, and by proxy, my descent into American nationalism. So, PragerU Kids is a right leaning YouTube channel for children that is very, very propagandized. It's funded by the Wilkes brothers, who are oil billionaires, and there's probably no relation there. I'm sure those guys decided to fund it because they just want kids to learn about their country's history and no other reason. The best way to TLDR this channel is that PragerU Kids is like walking into a toy shop and finding that the majority of toys are only Legos and different types of Legos. Like, you kind of go in expecting a variety, but it's just the same America good thing over and over and over again. At some point, I need to call these stupid metaphors I add to my scripts that I barely try and give logic to. Well-known properties associated with PragerU Kids include Leo and Layla, which is like Caleb and Sophia from Jehovah's Witnesses, except these two are infinitely less interesting. Their gimmick is that they time travel to different eras to search for answers to their incredibly small child problems. The series is so badly written that a part of me wants to have a sit down with the writers of it, not even about the messaging, but the technical aspects of it. Another show you might recognize are these animated story times from their show Around the World, where there's a narrator talking over some child who ultimately learns that the world is perfect the way it is, and the only people making it worse are woke, and that you should probably migrate to America because it's perfect there. So I think that's what most people know about this channel. I don't think they know very much else, but there is a lot, like a lot more to this place. So join me on a journey through the world of PragerU Kids. Part 1: The Money Shows. Literally, I have to do parts. I'm sorry. I need new viewers keeping up with my rambling somehow, or else you'll click off to watch the H-Bomber Guy's oof video again. The first thing you'll notice about the PragerU Kids channel is that there are a lot of videos about the economy and starting your own business, mostly about kids starting their own brands, information about how businesses work, how to do marketing, stuff like that. For an educational kids channel, it's quite rampant. The two shows that focus on this are The Hustle and Cash Course. Cash Course is a very boring show, so I'm just going to get it out of the way quickly. It's very clearly a ripoff of Crash Course by Hank Green, because I swear PragerU finds it impossible to come up with their own ideas for anything. They always use pre-existing properties and barely try to subvert them or create anything new and interesting. This show is just information dumps about the economy, with very terrible skits interrupting every now and then to hold the attention of the ironically poor children watching them. Oh wait, you can actually exchange currency at a hotel? I actually didn't know that. I just don't know what child would find this interesting, and why there are so many of these episodes. I mean, I know why, I'm just playing coy for the sake of the video, but Crash Course already has an economics course, you can just go there. They probably go a lot more in depth and talk about different aspects of the economy outside of long, boring definitions and explanations on how to use it. Anyway, the more fun one. The Hustle. The Hustle consists of a series of interviews with young people who have become rich from small startup businesses, and it's like, look at these children who made lip balm from beeswax and do pressure washing. You can do that too. The American dream isn't dead. A highlight from The Hustle for me is during this episode about reselling sneakers, where they give a definition of the word reputation, but not for market value. Great, thanks for telling me about what a reputation is. Now I know that I don't have a good one. It's so clear they don't know who they're targeting with this. Is it primary school kids or high schoolers? It's clearly high schoolers, right? Like, this kid's 16, it's meant to be motivating for young entrepreneurs. Also, the guy who narrates The Hustle never introduces himself, which is, I know, very nitpicky, but a strange oversight. Like, he's the face of the show, he talks to each person, surely he should be named, like, Steve or something. Instead, he's just this guy we know nothing about and we have no connection to. They mention his name once in, like, the first episode, and then they never do it again. So the one after the sneaker episode is this girl who made a clothing brand called Childlike, and the weird thing is, this video seems to think that the main selling point of this brand is that it's faith-based and heavily religious, but it really isn't. At most, there's a Bible verse in the clothing tags, but it's hidden away in a corner like a shameful secret. I I really don't know what's happening here. I am unashamed of my youth doesn't make me think of the Bible Or Jesus, it just makes me think of a midlife crisis. Also, this kid who does like leathering looks so much like Parker from Jubilee, like an older version of him, which I just wanted to add because I thought it was kind of funny. He kind of talks like him too.
You're reaching out to companies, you're doing cold calls, cold emails, you're the one buying the...
Going to terminate the Constitution, sending false slates of electors to Electoral College to cast Trump.
Another thing I have to mention is that it's clear the hustle is pretty desperate for young people to interview on the channel. They keep mentioning how you'll grow your business if you work with them, how great it would be if you could show up on their channel and stuff. They even straight up at some points ask the viewer to contact them to appear in a video about their business. I wonder if I should show up on the hustle. Just show them me shivering under a blanket, staying up till 3 a.m. drawing comics with a ContraPoints video essay blasting in the background. Ultimately, both of these financially focused shows are just very dumb. I guess finance is the one thing that PragerU can be very neutral about. They don't have to touch on anything to do with humanities, and knowing finance is pretty important considering money is the thing most people need to live. It is quite sad though because a lot of the show is like, look at this homeschool kid who made money from making simple earrings. You can do that too. That's the most important thing in life. How to make your hobbies into commodities that can be sold. Even when it's clear the kids are passionate about what they're making, the focus is always on the financial aspect of it. How much money they're making, how they're growing their business, branding, marketing. It's kind of sad to watch almost. Part 2. The game shows. So, despite game shows being famous for being exciting and fun, the ones on this channel are not that, very much so. There are 3 game shows here. We have Unboxed, Guess or Mess, and Street Smarts. Unboxed is the most American thing I've ever seen. This show is truly impossible to watch if you weren't born in America. I think it inadvertently shows how barren America's history is though. Saying that as an Australian is quite hypocritical. I know, we're younger than America, but I'm also Indian, and Indians have existed since Jesus was born, so somehow, somewhere, my point still stands. This game involves getting clues to figure out what American state you're in, with each clue being something that relates to that state. You get 3 guesses to guess the state, and if you do, you get the big prize, which is just snacks or stuff from that state. A lot of these clues are like trees and rocks and landscapes and climates, and I'm getting bored just talking about it. If you're super into America, I guess this would be interesting to you, or maybe if you are American, because you can actually know the differences between the states, but it'll be very far in the future when I learn the difference between any of these places. I hope people can tell that's a joke about how terrible I am at geography, and not that I'm racist against Americans or something. Guess or Mess, on the other hand, is very classic gross kids show. It's not as good as Flushed, and my favorite host of all time, Candace Dixon, isn't there, but it's like, whatever. I will talk about the gross food though, which for some reason includes Chinese takeout, not like rotten food, but just regular Chinese takeout, which feels bad.
Why does it smell like this? It honestly smells good. It smells like dog food.
Yikes. And this was after a question about Nixon's relationship with China at the time as well. Maybe they needed some DEI program to check the optics for stuff like this. This show is just answering questions about important US leaders and people in history, and no matter who it is, it looks at them pretty favorably, and the questions about them are usually softball. Finally, we have Street Smarts, which is the most bearable one. Honestly, there's not much to say about the game shows. They're pretty boilerplate. Every now and then, you'll hear the odd sentence and you'll go, that's an insane thing to say. But Street Smarts is only weird for the fact that there's an Uncle Sam cosplayer. Who is this guy? Like, I really don't get where he came in during American history. Was he always there? Or was he like a reaction to Santa Claus? Is he like America's own version of Hitalia? Is he like a sexy anime boy personified from stereotypes about America? Part 3. The History Shows. We have 3 more shows here with Leo and Layla, Craftory, and TBH History. Let's start with Leo and Layla since that's the one most people know anyway. The thing about this show that grates me the most is that it's just so badly animated. I'm glad to know that the good animators all decided to jump off this train wreck, but God, were there only motion designers left? I don't know why I threw shade at motion designers. You guys are cool. You make the news graphics go swoopy. But like, these characters are just so stilted and inhuman with their animation. They're constantly moving. It's so weird and terrifying. Even in the later episodes, it looks like the animation got a little better, but it's still quite bad. I think making them more static could really save it. Content-wise, I'm convinced that this is some of the worst educational kids content I've seen in a while. It's probably why people think of this show as the face of the channel. It's just like so bad. You'd think a fun time-traveling show to learn about world history would be alive and engaging, but it's just Leo and Layla on one side of the scene, whoever they're talking to on the other side, and they just talk forever. As someone who used to be a child, I would have definitely ranked any other kids show over this. Of course, the blatant erasure of history can't really go unsaid, especially anything to do with slavery or historically oppressed groups. One thing I can't not mention is when the siblings go to see fictional characters Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn to be like, why does the world seem to hate these badly aged books? What is this madness? This inexplicable censorship? The whole summary for this video is this fictional character being like, just let me say the N-word, please. Just let me say the N-word. Please, please, please. Just let me say the N-word. And let kids read it. That's gonna cut badly out of context, isn't it? One thing that I didn't expect about this show, and I actually don't think a lot of people have mentioned this, is that Leo and Layla go back in time to also see and talk to biblical figures. And that was the point where I was like, oh, so non-religious people are definitely not the ones watching this channel. Esther was actually my favorite character from the Bible when I was young. Like, I read that story so many times. So a part of me was excited to see it reimagined in Leo and Layla. And God, whoever was voice acting her was so bad. You guys couldn't have just used like Layla's voice actor for her or something?
One day, Ahasuerus summoned his wife, Queen Vashti. It wasn't all fun. I trusted him, so I told no one.
I'm half convinced this is AI. I was so disappointed. The Abraham episode made me laugh because it's the one where Leo and Layla catch Abraham and Isaac right after Abraham just almost murdered his son for God. Like, the walk down the mountain after that whole ordeal would have already been quite awkward between them, but then to have these two random siblings from the future come in and ask your dad about his whole backstory and the insanely traumatic event that just happened to you must have been like, I can't even think of how I'd be feeling. On the other hand, craftory is a bit more hands-on. Can I say that? Can I say hands twice in one sentence? That feels wrong. This one has a recurring host named Jill Simonian, who makes these different historical crafts, and you get some educational facts about what they're based on. Jill is a very energetic and passionate host. She clearly believes the stuff she says, and is very invested in being a presenter for children's media. She can be just a bit too much sometimes. Her timing is very often too fast, but maybe kids would find this to be a normal talking speed. I don't know. I'm not aware of much of her work outside of PragerU Kids, but she's like the only kind of talented person I've seen on this channel so far. There are also, interestingly, two versions of the introductory video to Craftory. The first one is this one, which is unlisted and heavily features a gender unicorn and woke stuff to peddle to their conservative audience to be like, we're not like that.
Ever wonder why our kids are not learning as much American history as they should be? Well, as a parent, I know that in many schools, kids are drawing gender unicorns and diversity color wheels to talk about their race instead.
And the second trailer, the more official one, I guess, is more neutral and barely mentions the unicorn. I'm assuming the reception to the first one was so bad that they decided to remake it to look more neutral, or maybe even anti-woke people were like, that's kind of cringy. I just wish they had a craftery where we had to make a straight American unicorn as like a gotcha to the gay unicorn, and you can only color the American flag on it, no rainbows allowed. I was most interested in craftery because of my personal love of biblical crafts, because it's a juxtaposition between pretzel crosses and quirky potted plants to the real-life story of Jesus being violently nailed to a cross and entombed will never not be funny to me.
The second snack we're gonna make are chocolate-covered pretzel crosses. This represents Jesus' crucifixion on the cross.
But obviously this show is more focused on American history crafts, like a Mississippi River flatboat and a patriotic paper flute? I learned a lot more about marching bands than I really wanted to here. At least I know where to go if I ever wanted to make a George Washington Carver peanut puppet. I'm glad to have that knowledge taking up a few of my neurons. The worst craft, I think, is the First Responders t-shirt, when there was already a craft to make a First Responders bracelet. I don't know why they did this one twice. Maybe they just ran out of topics that quickly. This is legitimately the ugliest shirt I've ever seen. It's so tacky, especially painting the lines at the end. It looks so terrible. I hope no one is caught dead wearing that shirt. It reminds me of Troom Troom crafts, like good lord. Another craftery that I definitely can't not mention is the one where they make a DIY Iron Dome. Like, what's next, Jill? A DIY AK-47? A tank? Why don't we just make a papier-mâché nuclear bomb while we're talking about World War II? Finally, we have TBH History, which, without question, is one of the worst shows this channel has to offer. I despise it beyond explanation. While the PragerU Kids channel targets mainly kids, there are also some videos that target teenagers, and it's very corporate and unbearable. They remind me of old BuzzFeed, and I hate all the hosts, and I'm glad I've never told their names. If you're an Australian, maybe you remember the ABC3 show called You're Skidding Me? It's kind of like that. God, that's an oldie. I need to do a deep dive of old ABC3 at some point. This guy has the worst delivery of any of the hosts of this channel. Maybe it's his audio quality, which I know is rich coming from me, okay? But it's so obnoxious to listen to anything he says.
After all, you're a happy bear. You got what you need. Let's just say it could be a lot better if you had more information. You'd have more opportunities to do things.
Lem. His name is Lem. You need to improve your audio quality, Lem. Or your delivery, I don't know which. Sometimes he sounds okay, and other times I'm desperately waiting for a transition to the second narrator. I have very little to say about this show outside of the fact that I hate it a lot, to be honest. It's very Mr. Beast editing, like fast-paced. Quick, the jokes are one-liners and easily placed in TikToks or shorts. It feels like a lot of the skits are forced in there with no rhyme or reason as well. Especially this bit they always do where they show photos of important historical figures, and then one of the crew dresses up as them and stands in front of the photo as if to imitate them. I don't understand the point of this bit. Are you pretending to look like them? Are you trying to make fun of the lifelessness of the photo? It's like they did it just for some action on the screen. I should do that. Get an impersonator for my sprites to stand in front of me and just pose there. Then I'll become appealing to the youths. The show is also very similar to Hank Green's Crash Course in form, with the fast-paced talking and heavy content, but it's very clear what aspects of history they do not want to let their audience know. For example, they'll happily spend 2 episodes talking about a completely different country, but they won't take a moment to really talk about America's history with chattel slavery or the native people who lived there. That stuff doesn't matter to this show. It's always about capitalism and freedom, and world history is always limited to America and Europe, the only places that matter in the world, apparently. Part 4. The Tale Shows. The Tales shows? The Tale Shows. Should I keep the pun? The pun doesn't make sense, so I should probably get rid of it. So, there are 2 shows where there are narratives involved. Otto's Tales and Around the World. Around the World is easily the worst one, and the one people know best next to Leo and Layla. You might not know that they're called Around the World, but you have definitely seen clips from these videos. Around the World are stories about children who live in other countries talking about social conflicts they're facing. Usually the show looks at these countries quite unfavorably compared to America or Britain, or if they talk about bad things in America, it's like, diversity is bad. Acknowledgement of woke is bad. They're funnily enough better animated than Leo and Layla. I don't know how that happened. Aesthetically, they look exactly like the animated story times you've seen online, like My Story Animated or Animated Stories, except these have more of an agenda to them. But I will say that those YouTube channels have infinitely more interesting stories.
Hi, I'm Zoe. So, fun fact, my parents and their neighbors almost killed me once.
Now that's a video that would have captivated me as a 13-year-old. The Around the World series mainly shows minorities being averse towards woke and being like, as a Mexican child, I think the police are really cool and BLM protesters are being whiny. Or as a black child living in South Africa, racism is not the reason black people are in poverty, and it's because black people aren't nice enough to white people and aren't working as hard as them. Yikes. You know, when I was saying that, like, most of these shows are pretty normal, save for some sketchy lines, this show has so many sketchy lines that you'll be cringing through most of the episodes. There's a video about casteism in India, where it implies that when the British Empire colonized India, they were against casteism and helped reduce its influence, when, in reality, it's the complete opposite. I feel like a lot of people, including British people, don't know this, but British Raj used casteism to intensify the social injustice that was already there, because they wanted to divide Indians so they wouldn't rise up against a common enemy. And it worked really well. Something that really got to me about the Priya video, which obviously hits home for me, is that the description talks about how American children should be lucky to experience less discrimination than Indians face in India, which is so ridiculous. It's legitimately the most unbelievable thing I've heard in a long time. Racism against Indians is so bad in America that if an Indian creator posts on any social media with their face, they will be called racist slurs. It's an inevitability. There's a reason I prefer using an avatar online for my videos. I mean, it's also because I like to dress up my sprites to personalize the videos, but also, this shit hurts, man. Around the World is definitely the worst show on PragerU, mainly because it's the most vile thing on here. The agenda is so blatant in this show that it's frustrating and sickening. You have to be moronic to not see it. Okay, now, Otto's Tales is, insane in a completely different way, so let me try to explain it to you the best I can. This show is a motion storybook where Jill from Craftory reads a tale to you. Every now and then, you also get the man himself, Dennis Prager, to stop by and also read a story, and some other guests shuffle in now and then. The stories also have rhyming all throughout, which is the only really commendable thing about them. Some of the rhymes are a bit dumb, but I think offering a bit of leeway to them is fair, considering how many of these they've made. So, Otto's Tales is about our narrator, Otto, a cute and rambunctious bulldog, and his owner, Dennis Prager the Kid, as they go on adventures learning about American patriotism. Yes, you didn't mishear that. These children picture books feature Dennis Prager as a child for some reason. It's so weird. I don't know why they did that. It reminds me of that era of animated TV shows in the 2000s where they kept doing baby versions of their characters because they looked cuter. But Dennis Prager? Why? What avid fan of PragerU has ever said, I like Dennis Prager and his beliefs, but if only there was a child version of him that could teach my kids important life lessons? Who thought this was a good idea? Especially when it's Dennis Prager himself who's narrating the picture books. It's so weird to see him read about himself as a child in the third person.
What does that mean? I asked. That's not even English. Well, let's go and find out, said Dennis. I hopped onto Dennis's tricycle.
I want to live in an alternate universe where it's Otto's tales, but instead of Dennis Prager, it's Ben Shapiro as a child going around doing adventures, and Otto tries to show him cool stuff and be upbeat and positive, but Ben is just being a wet blanket about the whole thing. I was about to do an impression of Ben Shapiro here, but I had to give myself a pep talk to stop myself just then, like, you will really regret listening back to this when you're editing. So not all of Otto's tales are about Otto, some are called Otto's tales, and just have random Bible stories or fairy tales. These are quite predictable, just regular kids programming. Maybe they have a weird line here or there, but they're ultimately harmless. The videos titled Let's Meet, however, prominently feature young American schoolboy Dennis Prager and Otto the Bulldog. There's also a lot of lore and world building here, which I can't believe I'm even saying about a PragerU video. Dennis has a mother and a father, and not just one pet in Otto, but also a cat named Smidge. He also goes to Liberty Elementary School, which is such a funny name. I can't get over it. Liberty Elementary School. Like, okay. Sure. We are also introduced to Dennis's family in the Father's Day video, including Max Prager, who is in the Navy, and this is Dennis Prager's actual father too, like not based on him, just his real life father. I really didn't expect that. We're getting into some weird territory here. Awkwardly enough, the Mother's Day one features absolutely nothing about Dennis Prager's real-life mother. We're shown two women from American history and are given absolutely no detail about his actual mother. The whole story is about Dennis trying to find the perfect gift for his mother and settles on a very impersonal gift of a bouquet of flowers. And we don't know if it's something his mother actually personally likes either. It's just flowers because women like flowers. I feel like I know too much about Dennis Prager's relationships with his parents now. Another important thing to note is that child Dennis seems to have no friends outside of his dog and cat. He only has classmates and seems pretty isolated from other people at school. And the kid is obsessed with America. Just another tiny Uncle Sam. He's a real nerd at school, but never gets bullied or anything. In fact, at Liberty Elementary, everyone loves him, and he's actually quite popular. Maybe this is just Dennis Prager's fantasy. This is who he wanted to be all along. He just really wanted to peak in elementary school, or like, be the coolest kid in class. Otto also doesn't have an interesting rapport with Dennis. He just kind of agrees with everything he says on every topic. It's very boring. There's not even a rivalry between the cat and the dog. That's a staple for every media involving animals. Maybe it's a subversion of that trope, and I'm just too woke-brained to recognize its brilliance. Watching this show is like watching a perverted version of Calvin and Hobbes. Like, a dark reflection of it. Otto also has this catchphrase at the end of every story where he's like, that was my favorite adventure yet.
That was my favorite adventure yet.
That was my favorite adventure yet, I barked.
That was my favorite adventure yet.
That was my favorite adventure yet.
And the joke is, he says that at the end of every story. And I wanted so badly for him to say it during the adventure where they go see September 11th happen, but he didn't. I was severely disappointed. I swear I would have cried laughing. Oh yeah, you heard that right. Otto and child Dennis actually go to see the Twin Towers on September 11th, 2001, and see the whole event and everything. It's as bizarre as it sounds. God, I've never seen more American flags on one page before in my entire life. These videos also show a person besides Jill who's wearing an Otto onesie, or someone in a Smidge onesie, and they really frighten me. I know that if I watched this as a kid, I would have had nightmares because of them. I already had a lot of nightmares about Salty. They come shambling in, and they're so much taller than Jill. They give me the ick. I thought I should mention that. There's also another video in this playlist that interested me, and it was the American Songbook Songfest. Wanna guess what happens in it? I don't know what it is about this video, but it amuses me to no end. This might just be me, but there's something very strange about having songs about how cool your country is. I mean, I sang the Indian national anthem as a kid, and then the Australian one, but I don't think either country ever had like a collection of purely patriotic songs. An American songbook is so, I don't know. Such an old-fashioned idea, I guess. You know what? I'm being judgmental. Let's sing along, guys. Join me. I'm sure it'll be fun.
You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may you...
Never mind. I guess we can't sing along. Wasn't there one guy during the process of this video, like, at least maybe the editor, who took just a second to be like, hey, what about we get rid of the giant text asking the viewer to go to our stupid website? What about we don't hide the lyrics so people can't do their own home karaoke? You just see Otto's tiny head bouncing over the bottom, so clearly there are lyrics to it. Maybe they just expected us to memorize the lyrics or something. I mean, if you're this down the PragerU kids rabbit hole, I suppose you should know and be able to sing every song in the American songbook. Also, the Grand Old Flag song has been completely ruined for me thanks to Clone High's JFK rendition, so I wouldn't have been able to sing it without laughing anyway.
Otto, you did a good job! And you did a good job!
I couldn't read the lyrics, Jill. Okay, that's everything I had to say about Otto's Tales. I just thought it was funny and wanted to share. Part 5. The worst one. Sorry I didn't keep the theming of the subtitles, and I'm sorry that the subtitle for this part is a lie. This is very far from the worst one. Around the World holds that crown quite steadily. I couldn't really categorize this one with the others, so it has its own subsection. You're welcome, America. How To has the same team from TBH History, where it's a bunch of young people teaching stuff to mainly teenagers, with skits and jokes, quote-unquote, peppered in. They're instructional videos about social topics, like how to deal with anxiety, how to interview, how to sleep, basically just life lessons, except of course they come with the added caveat of being conservative and having traditional values. They're actually quite reminiscent of how-to tutorials from the 50s about how to date or how to handle social interactions, as if we're aliens and this is our first day on Earth. Most of these are very youth group coded, very Bible meeting before pizza and it's good to ask questions kind of vibe. They're all mostly normal, except for a few that I want to talk about. Let me introduce you to the video How to Take Care of an American Flag. I would love it if an American in the comments tells me that this is actually a very important thing in their daily routine, taking care of their American flag, and that every American does this, because I legitimately do not know if they do.
If you're an American, chances are you own an American flag. Here's what you need to know to be a successful flag owner.
I don't even know what to say to that. What is a successful flag owner? Can I meet them? I have so many questions.
Once finished, there should be no red or white stripes visible. Do it again.
Very Mr. Beast. Jeez. The funniest part of this video is where they tell you things to not do with the flag, and because the flag is so symbolically important to them, they use a fake flag to demonstrate. I guess if it's that spiritually important to people, but just wow. Is anyone actually this patriotic? It befuddles me. I can't think of a single Australian who would hesitate drowning their flag in beer for not even a dare.
Now that you know how to handle your flag, go do something patriotic, like converting your communist friend.
Yeah, I'll go convert my communist friend. Which I have many of, sure. I also like the title of this video, How to Have Conversations with Real People. I guess the implication is that since you're watching this through a screen, you're not interacting with people live, and this is a video on how to do that, but it just comes off like real people are a different species. Also, How to Be a Rational Patriot is another video title that made me chuckle. Did rational have to be there? Is being a patriot just automatically irrational? The video on how to handle getting pulled over returns that kind of ick I felt watching all the history shows, so that was fun. Even just hearing the title and knowing it's by PragerU, most people would be like, this seems iffy. The interesting thing about this video is that it really emphasizes the officer's safety in these situations. It's like, don't get out of the car for the sake of the officer, because the officer might get really mad, or turn off the ignition so they know you won't leave, or don't move, apparently, because the officer might get scared.
Not only should you stay in your car, it's best to keep your hands on the steering wheel. A lot of movement makes an officer nervous.
They're also like, have a smile on, be in a good mood after getting pulled over, which is so stupid. Who would be in a good mood after getting pulled over? It's something that's repeated so much in this video, like, don't get mad. If you get mad, then obviously the police officer will get aggressive. Like, there's some deity that needs to be appeased or something. It's a crazy video.
Trying to convince the officer that you didn't do anything wrong is not going to go anywhere. Truth is, a lot of times officers will let you off with a warning. But if you're being a weasel, your odds of just getting a warning go down.
How to be a victor and not a victim was also a funny video because it's like, if you have problems or are being set back by society, just get over it and work harder. You're being a whiny little baby about nothing. Helen Keller got over being blind and deaf, and Martin Luther King Jr. got over living in racial segregation. So you should get over it too. It's just that easy, you moron. Alright, let's actually look at these tips and important advice. I can't criticize the show without at least trying some of this stuff. How to deal with anxiety. Alright, I've always had pretty bad anxiety. This video might give me some of that classic American wisdom. Step 1, breathe. Okay, that's pretty normal advice. I think most people with anxiety know that one. Step 2, keep yourself thin. That's a weird way of saying drink water regularly and eat healthy food. Like, you can just say live a healthier lifestyle or something. You don't have to say keep yourself thin. Oh, okay, what about this video about embracing your femininity? I don't think I've been doing that very often.
1. Don't get caught up in stereotypes. Wear pink. If you want to dress up in a girly dress, do it. Make yourself pretty. Master the art of makeup. If you want to wear high heels, go for it.
So, the first step to being feminine is to be stereotypically feminine. Cool, thanks guys. I'm glad I'm being given such insider information. Next step is to smile. A lot of these videos are just like, be in a good mood and you'll feel better. I guess like psychologically that would work, but I don't know. If I'm not happy, I'm not just going to smile to pretend like I am. Also, I don't think smiling is a purely feminine trait. It's hard to believe, but I've seen men smile, and they also look very pretty doing it. I like this piece of advice because of how fundamentally stupid it is. Thanks, PragerU kids. I'll smile more the next time I get fired or go through a breakup. What matters is that everyone can see my beautiful, white teeth smile. Don't be mean.
It's good to have your own opinions and share them with others, but handle confrontation with grace.
So you know the Earth is flat.
Yeah.
But I can't even share my opinions. I can't tell someone they're being stupid when they think the earth is flat. Alright, I guess if I'm embracing my femininity. At this point, I'm just becoming the robot mom from Umbrella Academy. What else is here? Oh, this is interesting. How to apologize to somebody. Just a side note here, but like, the way this girl said this line.
You hurt our friendship!
Has been stuck in my head ever since I've seen it. I don't know why. I don't know how. But the way she said it has just been stone cold in my head. I'm bizarrely obsessed with it and I don't know why. My strange fixations aside, let's see step 1 of how to forgive someone.
First thing to think about before you apologize is this. Consider whether you actually did anything wrong. Sometimes you haven't actually done anything that you need to apologize for.
Okay, so the first step to forgiving someone is to not forgive someone. You guys couldn't have thought of a different step to start off with? Alright, I think I'm done with this how-to channel. It feels like I'm just reliving my youth group days, and those were not fun. My final thoughts. So, PragerU as a channel has always been a source of interest to me. I've seen a lot of it, I've seen a lot of people talk about it, negatively and positively. Admittedly, mostly negatively. It's a very strange conservative channel where actual university professors just say very, very unhinged stuff that goes mostly unchecked. I think even on the other side of the aisle, people don't really seem to like PragerU. They think it's a bit too corporate or just plain dumb. The target audience for these videos seem to be mainly adults or older people who are largely religious and or conservative. PragerU Kids, on the other hand, is obviously a lot more consumable since it's for the children of those adults. That's why the videos are so short and fast-paced and welcoming and look so much like other mainstream media that is popular with children. I think the reason people kind of hone in on just Leo and Layla or Around the World while ignoring all the other shows is because that's where the propaganda is most blatant, where particularly racism is shown so clearly. Whenever it tackles history or stories, the lack of attention is very apparent. People who are historically oppressed become shadows. Their humanity is hardly shown. They're talked about as if they had gone extinct a long time ago. And when it centers minorities, it uses their experience for furthering its own nationalistic agenda to try and prove that America might have a few things wrong with it, but we're not going to actually talk about that. And it's not as bad as the lives of those people, right? The people in other countries. Be happy with what you have. Be grateful for the good that already exists. In my opinion, that's just a very narrow-minded way of looking at things. The only way you can arrive at that conclusion is by ignoring or belittling the suffering of others who aren't as fortunate as you are. I think the fact that this channel prioritizes history, traditional self-help, and economics is actually pretty interesting. There's nothing here about maths, biology, science, English, political science, or geography. It's only concerned with meritocracy, to build your own business, save money, and learn a very shallow view of history. It monotonously repeats things you already know about history history. Like, most people know about the French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution, and the World Wars too. It'll maybe offer some facts you don't know, but it's just like a budget version of a lot of better resources on YouTube. The people who run this channel don't care about all these other things. They're just interested in having the one-word answer to complicated questions. America is great because it's always great and right. Things are the way they are because they are natural. We have evolved to this point because it is what naturally occurred, and we are just at the whims of ethereal forces around us that determine good and evil. We simply have to submit to what is already considered good and right, and we can't determine things by our own understanding or critical thinking. Everything is already here, set in stone. The good guys and the bad guys already exist. You just have to pick right. Of course, if education was taught to us like that, it would be pretty insane, and it has been taught like that in some places. Thankfully, there are a lot more people who are in charge of children's education than the 5 business people who run PragerU Kids and have funding from oil billionaires. Though that might change soon, who knows? Books are already getting banned at quite an intense rate, and PragerU Kids is quickly becoming a part of the American curriculum. I think the channel, as of now, is thankfully not very successful. I don't think many kids watch this voluntarily. The videos themselves are quite boring, especially Leo and Layla, which is impressive because theoretically, that should be the most fun one for kids. It's like a children's version of Doctor Who, you know? There's 2 characters getting into adventures and hijinks through time and space. How do you make it this bad? It's almost not even fun to make fun of. For kids, listening to a terrible voice actor impersonate famous historical world leaders probably gets pretty boring after a while. I'm also very fascinated by Prager himself and his relationship to this channel. Dennis Prager seems to want to leave a legacy behind that centers on him, like to be remembered as a legend or myth that would outlive him. Why else would you do something as bizarre as have a child version of yourself in children's storybooks? He wants to be like the next Uncle Sam, like a mystical figure who will forever infect conservative media. I'm very interested by this Walt Disney impersonation he's doing for the channel. Anyway, that's all the thoughts I had. Thanks for taking this journey with me through the world of PragerU Kids. I hope you had a fun time here. Do you want to be friends with Child Dennis and his only 2 friends, Smidge the cat and Otto the dog? I think I'm good. I really think we're missing out on having Child Dennis and all his child friends being people from the Daily Wire. A baby Ben Shapiro, a baby Jordan Peterson, baby Dave Rubin, and they all play together at the park and learn lessons about America at Liberty Elementary. Can someone write that? It sounds fun. I should be the one pitching shows at bentkey. It'd be like the next Norm or something. I call it Baby Dennis and Pals. And the pitch poster is all the characters in the playground, in diapers, rolling around in the sand. I will see you all next time. Follow me on Patreon for access to behind the scenes and to get my videos early and a shout out, which is nice. You get to see my sprites and guess what the video is about for the month. I also post updates for comics that I'm writing, because I also write comics. This isn't the only thing I do. You can also do the classic subscribe and like and comment. That definitely helps. I will see you all some other time, and I think this was my most favorite adventure yet.